My name is Bailey Wright, District 1 4-H Specialist, and this is part 2 of our Duds to Dazzle coaches training. If you missed part 1, we briefly went over the contest overview and some rules, scorecard, sewing kit, the 5 educational objectives that I think are important to enhance the project of the youth, but also to allow them to be competitive when it comes to the contest, and where to find some great resources to help you hit those objectives. So for this second video, we are going to focus on construction strategies for the preparation phase of the contest, and then go into some presentation strategies. So first and foremost, I think you have to be really efficient going into the preparation stage of this contest. There's only 60 minutes for 5 members to construct a new product out of an item that they may not have seen before, and so that 60 minutes really flies. Game plan is so important. And so I touched on this a little bit in the first video, but what I mean by that is I would practice making certain things with your team and make sure they're really confident in making certain things. Maybe for each category, wearable, non-wearable, and accessory, have 2 or 3 things they know how to make, and they know how to make them well. And even go as far as to try to anticipate what some of the startup items are going to be given are. If they get a towel, can they make an accessory, a wearable, and a non-wearable towel? Yes. Can they do that for a t-shirt? Can they do that for a pillowcase? What about a bandana? Just kind of game plan some of those broad items so that when they go in there, they don't panic, they don't lose focus and end up making something that doesn't represent their skill set. So game plan what they're going to make. The next step, I think, is jobs. I think it's really important that everyone on the team is assigned certain jobs from the get-go. They have their same jobs throughout all of their practices and project meetings. So then when it gets time to contest, there's no question about who's doing what. They know their job. I know it gets a little tricky on the job. Sometimes you have to look at the kiddo's skill set and do a little strengths-based leadership analysis. But I think as long as you're excited about all the jobs and you're really hitting home that each job is important for the team, the kids are going to pick up on that excitement as well. So set up quickly so they can start making their item is you need to basically have a plugger-inner person, someone who, as soon as your bag opener down here opens the bag and tells the team what category they're in. Oop, let's go back already. Tells the team what category they're in and what your startup item is. You have someone who knows, are we going to use the hot glue gun? Yep, I need to plug that in. Are we going to use the iron? Yep, I need to plug that in. Just because your team doesn't want to suddenly remember they need an iron and then be waiting on it to heat up. That kills time. If your team's the type of team who needs a timer to keep them on task, have one person who knows to get the timer out of the box and get that started. A sketch person who's grabbing the sketch pad out of the box to get that ready. And then a sewing machine person who is making sure the sewing machine's ready to go, it's threaded, and y'all can get to work. So that's kind of your setup stage, and then you go into your preparation stage. To me, the sketcher, something that's really overlooked. There's a sketch pad for a reason on that list, and I think the judges like to see a team that brainstorms, that plans, that gets a sketch going. I also think it's important for the team to keep them on their game plan and to keep them organized and to collaboratively get their vision before they all break out and start doing their own jobs. They need to, it's a team decision of what you're going to make and how you're going to make it. Then everyone divides in their job to divide and conquer. So make sure you have an artistic person, someone who's good with detail, good with vision, and that they're your sketcher. This may be his personal opinion. All of this is personal opinion, actually, based on personal experience. So before you dive into this, talk to some other veteran project leaders and agents that might have different and better ideas. But I think it's way too tough to have all 5 teammates hopping on the sewing machine when it comes contest time. Hopefully in project meetings, everyone's familiar enough with the sewing machine, but I think you've got to have one main seamstress or sewing machine person, maybe even an assistant to that person, especially younger groups, or an advanced group that it just gets tough to have an assistant there helping you is good. But one main sewing machine person who's really familiar with the machine and experienced. Find someone who's going to be your hand stitcher, who's going to look for a way to incorporate that other skill and technique into your product. Find someone who's really good at embellishing or coming up with cute embellishing ideas. And then you also need a closet goer. To me, it's great to have the same person be the person who goes to the closet every time. That person needs to be able to know what you need and identify those items. They need to come back and communicate with the team, whether that be what's available, what colors are available, that sort of thing. So you need a really responsible closet goer. Because also there aren't going to be take backs on the closet. Once you get something, if you get for it, it's yours to keep. And then clean up. The same person needs to know I'm in charge of cords every time. I'm in charge of trash. I'm in charge of getting the box packed back together so that it looks neat. Because the only thing you're allowed to leave on your table would be hot items. If your iron is still hot, if your hot glue gun is still hot, then of course you can bring your sewing machine up there. But extension cords, all that needs to be picked up. Trash needs to go to the trash. I added thread cutter because I worked with a team last year. I won't name any names, but they were notorious for they would finish and they'd be in such a hurry because it takes so much time, and they've had the cutest little product or garment and there'd just be all their threads and strings just hanging off. So I assigned someone to be string cutter. At the very end, they knew it was their job to make sure it looked nice and neat. So I think just making sure you have that game plan. They know what's in their wheelhouse to make before they go into contests, and everyone has a job to make sure they're being really efficient. Will go a long ways and will make them feel prepared and confident going into the contest. Okay, just some basic do's and don'ts. Do use a variety of techniques. What I mean by that, I hit on this in the first video too, is if it's a junior team, you can't allow them to just hot glue if they want to be competitive. They need to show that they know how to sew on a sewing machine. Do some hand stitches, whether they throw a blanket stitch in there or just a basic running stitch. Can they sew on a button? Can they add some rhinestones? Just make sure that they're not doing one thing the whole time. For maybe some of the more advanced teams, can you do different hem techniques, different stitches? Can you throw a zipper in there? Honestly, it's building those skills, and how many skills can you incorporate in your product to really show off what techniques your team knows how to do. Don't overuse the hot glue gun. Man, oh man. This is mild compared to some of the stuff that we've seen, especially in those younger groups. I think it's because we're letting them use a hot glue gun for possibly the first time in their lives, and they just go wild and they hot glue anything and everything. I think you've just got to lay it out in the beginning and tell them we can't go hot glue gun crazy. It's just not going to be as high quality, and nip that in the bud from the get-go. Do stick to a color pattern and be creative. Older teams are typically pretty good about this, about finding a color pattern or theme and sticking with it, still create. Sometimes in younger categories, we get just a rainbow of colors and there's no real theme and they just put it all together. So make sure they understand what a color pattern is and how they can use that, but still be creative. Don't overdo the embellishments. It's kind of back with the hot glue too. Sometimes they think more is better. I think it's a good lesson to teach them less is more, and embellishments should be to add to your final product, not take away from it. Also be mindful of what you make. In this case, a tie it doesn't probably make sense for there to be feathers on a tie. So keep things like that in mind and make them think about some realistic embellishments. Do make a usable item. Sometimes this happens. The expectation is a nice ear warmer headband, and the reality is you get some string. I think this is mainly when we see a lot of unusable items. It's just something random that they've made up that they make. I think it's because something goes wrong or they didn't have a game plan and they panic and throw something together. So again, I think you can avoid this happening if you game plan with them and give them a wheelhouse of things they know how to make. Okay, let's move into the presentation aspect of this content. Again, all age groups will give a 5-minute presentation to 2 judges after the completion of the 60 minutes. So, of course, basic things: volume. Are you loud enough? Are you talking clear enough that the judges can understand you? Eye contact, no wiggling. That's a big one. We see a lot of wiggle bugs. Smile when you talk. I like the way that looks. I think it makes you sound and look like you're excited to be there, and sometimes it even will slow you down a little bit. No looking around the room. I think my rule was always, if you're not the person talking, you're looking directly at the judges in their eyes. If you're not the person talking, you're either looking at the judges or you're looking at your teammate who is talking, but you're not looking down, you're not scanning the ceiling. Look like you're attentive to what's being said. Handshakes, there's some different opinions on this. I personally prefer if the kids will just go in there, do their introductions, do their presentation, then at the end say thank you and shake hands with the judges. All team members should shake hands with the judges. I know some coaches, some agents might prefer for you to immediately go in, shake the judges' hands, and then start your presentation, and that's fine. It's not going to affect you point-wise, I wouldn't think. But my perspective is sometimes those kids have been sitting there for 15 minutes and they've got their presentation worked up in their head. They go in and do handshakes first. It kind of throws their mojo off. It gets them in the zone. So I'd rather them stay in the zone, go straight into their presentation, and shake hands at the end. But that's up for debate. Okay, kind of another personal preference, and everyone might not agree with me on this, but I think the presentation can make you or break you. And so you've got to have a script for those kids, and that script has got to be introduced pretty early on. And this isn't even what I mean by a script. This is an outline. To me, you need to give them a fill-in-the-blank script. Not that they're going to be able to take that script with them into contests. They will absolutely not. But they'll be able to get it in their head exactly what they need to say and basically be able to fill the blanks in their head and make note cards to take into the presentation room with them. While we're on the topic of note cards, I do think it's acceptable for juniors and intermediates to take cards in there. They don't need to rely on them heavily. It needs to be a glance. They don't need to be staring down, using the note card as a crutch. It should be used just as an aid. Seniors, in my opinion, if you want to be competitive, you can't take note cards in there. But if you introduce the script to them early at one of the first practices and they practice that script every time, they basically have it memorized and just fill the blanks in their heads. Same way I talked about assigning jobs in the preparation phase. I think you've got to assign jobs in the presentation phase at the beginning and stick with those jobs all the way through so they can really learn their part and be successful. So first and foremost is the introduction. This can kind of be led by one person, but the whole team can kind of do it. Introduce the team member names, the team name, what county they're from. The second step is the construction step, and to me this is either usually the main seamstress or the assistant seamstress, because they probably know more details of exactly what steps were taken. But you need to introduce what you made. Start out by talking about your sketch for it, your brainstorm, how y'all came up with it, needed to get from the closet, what you got from the closet, and then be very, very detailed in all the steps you took to make your item, all the different techniques that were used start to finish. No details is too small there. Person number 3 is marketing. You need to be able to identify who's your target audience and why. Who's going to buy this and why are they going to buy it? It might be by gender, by age, by hobby, by interest, by location. Identify that target audience. I didn't talk about this in the first video, and I meant to, but a great level